Welcome everybody to the CBR webinar. Today we have the pleasure of having with us David Se. David is an extremely well-known professor working in the area of communication and scheduling in computer science. Like, he's extremely well-known in the community. He has won several awards, including the Career Award, in the Cloud Shannon Award, and he's also a member of the U.S. National Academy of Engineering. And he has in the last few years done also a lot of work in the area of crypto, and that's the focus of his talk today. So without further say, David, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Agostino. So I'll start sharing screen. Yes.
Yeah, please.
Cool. All right. Okay. So can everybody see the screen? Make sure that.
Yeah.
So people hear me. People can see me. See the screen. Very good. So great to be here at this seminar. So today I'm going to talk about a new concept that we invented. We call trustless Bitcoin vote. Now, the goal here is to integrate Bitcoin with the smart contract economy. So I'll try to explain what all these things mean in the talk. But if you have any questions, please do ask on the chat, and Agostino can stop me, and I'm happy to explain more on some of these concepts. So I would say that a lot of the concepts are based on cryptography, but I'm trying to focus on this talk on how these cryptography concepts are actually useful in achieving high-level goal, which is to make Bitcoin productive. Okay, now, all right. So I would like to start by giving some context to this work, which is what Satoshi Nakamoto said when he introduced Bitcoin to the world. So in 2009, Satoshi Nakamoto had this post on the P2P forum where he introduced Bitcoin. And the key I want to emphasize is the following. In his mind, the most important thing, the most important contribution of Bitcoin is to remove third-party trust, So he said, everything in Bitcoin should be based on crypto proof instead of trust. Trust means trust on third party. And I think this is really, in my mind, the spirit of blockchains, the spirit of Bitcoin. And so in some sense, this work here is carry on that spirit. Okay, so Bitcoin is the first blockchain. Satoshi Nakamoto invented Bitcoin to solve a particular problem, what he calls a peer-to-peer payment system. In other words, payment system without centralized trust. Now, it turns out, though, something interesting happened, is that application is really not the main contribution of Bitcoin to the world in some sense. It is the contribution that this idea of decentralized trust. And in fact, to enable this vision of Nakamoto of decentralized trust, people had to build other blockchains. Prime example being Ethereum in the early days, and now there's Solana and other blockchains, to essentially broaden this vision from the payment application to many other applications, particularly decentralized finance application. And the reason why people had to build other blockchains to achieve this is because Bitcoin has a very poor, very limited scripting language to describe application. It's really focused on payment. And Bitcoin is also a very slow blockchain. And so most smart contracts is developed in other blockchains. So that's what I call the smart contract economy. However, Bitcoin itself, although not very good in terms of application, became very good as a store of value, and it grew to a 2.4 trillion. Maybe today it's actually a bit more than 2.4 trillion, but I think because today I think Bitcoin reached another all-time high at 126K per Bitcoin, if I remember correctly, looking at the news this morning. So we're at about, I don't know, 2.5 trillion or something like that at this point. It's an amazing asset. It's the 5th largest asset, just below gold, etc. And so there's a very strange situation here, which is the following. The majority, vast, significant majority of the crypto economy is actually on Bitcoin. The market cap is like 2/3 of crypto is on Bitcoin. Yet, the smart contract, which is where all the interesting DeFi innovation is happening on other blockchain, and Bitcoin cannot participate in this because Bitcoin is on a different blockchain. And so kind of one of the holy grail of Bitcoin blockchain development or infrastructure development is how to really connect back Bitcoin into these DeFi economy. So that is kind of one of the biggest holy grail open problem here in crypto. If you look at what is the current state of affairs, you will see that 2.4 trillion, less than 1% of that, okay, is bridged over to the smart contract economy. And it's bridged using two assets, so-called wrap asset. One is WBTC, which is around 6.65%, and the other is CBBTC, around 0.3%, minted by Bitcoin, but minted by Coinbase. And so it's kind of strange, is that although the whole point of Bitcoin is to have this relies only on crypto proof but not trust, but yet to allow Bitcoin to participate in the trustless smart contract economy on the right-hand side, we have to go through this trust bottleneck. So number one observation is that it is not consistent with Nakamoto's original vision to have this trust bottleneck in the middle. And two is because of this trust bottleneck, very little of Bitcoin actually was able to go over to the smart contract economy. And this is precisely because a lot of people who hold Bitcoin do not want to go through this trusted third party, WBTC and CBBTC. And so the question I would like to address today is to fall back to Nakamoto's vision, which is how do we allow Bitcoin to participate trustlessly in the smart contract economy using only crypto proofs? Okay. Now, this word trustless, okay, is actually a word that is not very commonly used, because in normal English, trust is actually a positive connotation. Trust is actually a good thing. But in crypto, trust is actually a bad thing. And so trustless becomes a positive term. And so I want to sort of say a few words about this trustless. By trustless, you mean that you can use cryptography to enable certain functionality that you can trust without any third party. Like in this example, Coinbase. You don't need to go and trust Coinbase because Coinbase is minting the CBBTC. And if you have CBDC and you want to get back Bitcoin, you have to trust Coinbase, because Coinbase is the one that holds custody of the Bitcoin that backs the CBBTC. So CBBTC is a good example of a trusted source. Crypto proofs, on the other hand, say that you want to achieve similar functionality without a trusted source. Okay. And I think this is sort of what I want to highlight here. By the way, Agostino, you can stop me anytime you want. But
Yeah.
this is kind of setting the stage for what is the problem that I'm trying to solve today.
Yeah, I think it's very clear to me, and there are no questions, so we can move on.
Okay. Yeah. So so I think this problem is very interesting, both from an academic point of view, from a research point of view, but also for a startup point of view. So in fact, in the past few years, I've launched a startup called Babylon, which tries to turn some of these concepts into reality. And in fact, we built this protocol called Bitcoin staking. And I would like to use this protocol as a case study to study what this means to allow Bitcoin to trustlessly participate in the smart contract economy. And then I will talk about current work in generalizing this concept to beyond staking. Okay, so just a few words about what staking is. So staking is actually a relatively new industry, a sub-industry of crypto, which basically allows blockchains to secure using capital. For example, in Ethereum, you can use ETH to secure the Ethereum chain. And roughly at this moment, there could be a few 100 billion worth of ETH staked, 100, I think around 160, 170 billion, the last time I checked, of Ethereum staked to provide security, okay? And this has become a very significant staking, a very significant market, around 1 trillion worth of blockchain is secured by by staking, and around 280, 300 billion of stake assets. So it's a pretty big industry, and a lot of players are in this market. It's very interesting because staking was originally invented as a concept, as a security model, okay, to provide security to blockchain. But then it became like a DeFi, part of DeFi, because people stake to earn yield, so-called staking reward. And you can see here that around 10 billion of staking reward is given out every year at this currently. And so it became like part of DeFi, a very important part of DeFi actually. And so about 2 years ago, we looked at this staking market and we asked the following question, which says, hey, wait a minute, this 1 trillion does not involve Bitcoin, does not include Bitcoin. And the reason is simple, because Bitcoin is not a proof of stake chain, okay? So Bitcoin, as we all know, is secured by proof of work, which is that the miners are working hard, doing a lot of computation to mine blocks. Whereas proof of stake chains like Ethereum or Solana is using capital, using asset to secure the blockchain. And so we start asking this question, which is, okay, fine. The Bitcoin asset, yeah.
Just a quick question on the previous slide. Is this the total staking, not just ETH staking? These numbers that
Yeah, this is the total of staking.
And do you have an
includes,
idea?
for example, Ethereum, Solana, Sway, Cardano. These are all the blockchains that are secured by proof of stake.
Yeah.
If you add them all up, it's around 1 trillion.
Yeah. You know, which Ethereum should be the largest, right? The largest
The
percent.
Ethereum is the largest, and out of the stake asset, around 160 billion is ETH staking. So ETH staking is more than half of the total staked asset. Okay.
Yeah.
But Bitcoin is by far larger than any of these assets. Okay, it's 3 times the value of Ethereum, roughly 3 times, 3 or 4 times. Okay, so it's strange that Bitcoin cannot participate, and so we asked this question, which is, hey, the Bitcoin asset cannot secure the Bitcoin chain, but why don't you use this asset to secure other blockchains? So, for example, you want to launch a new blockchain. Nowadays, you typically use your own asset, maybe you launch a new token to secure the blockchain. But maybe you don't need to launch a new token. Or maybe you want to use it in combination and bring Bitcoin, which is a much larger asset, to provide security. So we start asking this question. And so we built a protocol, which we launched a year ago and is currently running. And it is actually the largest at this moment. Bitcoin staking, the largest trustless Bitcoin protocol, largest in TVL. And today, I just screenshot this today from our dashboard, is 7 billion worth of Bitcoin staked, okay, to secure blockchains, okay? So let's think about what this means, okay? It means that Bitcoiners, 57,000 worth of Bitcoin is put in this protocol as a staking asset to provide security to blockchains, okay? That's what it means. And this is, I think, one of the first example of how Bitcoin can participate in the DeFi economy, because as I mentioned, staking is a very big part of the DeFi economy. And now Bitcoin, through the protocol that we invented here, Bitcoin staking, okay, allows Bitcoiners to participate in the DeFi economy through, in this particular example case study, staking, okay? Just as a comparison, if you look at one of the earliest protocol that is built on Bitcoin called Lightning, I'm quite sure people here are familiar with Lightning. Lightning has around, I don't know what the TVL is today, but it's typically of the order of 1 billion, okay? 1 billion is the TVL of Lightning. So this is 7 times the TVL of Lightning. And this really gives you an example of why is it important to allow Bitcoin to participate in the DeFi economy, because there's already an existing DeFi infrastructure, so people are familiar with that. With Lightning, it's actually a different direction. It's scaling Bitcoin as a payment system. So it's a very different objective, and you can see sort of the different scale here. Okay, so this sort of gives some sense of what Bitcoin participating trustlessly in a DeFi economy means. But now let me dig a little bit deeper into the technology or the crypto proof, okay, that makes this happen. So every time you build a trustless protocol without third party, it's just a lot of damn work, okay? A lot of work, because you have to invent the right crypto proofs to enable this to happen, okay? So I understand a lot of people here may not be crypto expert, so I want to go a little bit slower in the next slide. But I think it's important to explain a little bit more about the technology that is not trivial to make this happen. Okay, all right. So I want to explain a little bit about the protocol, because this allows me to talk about generalization, and it also gives you some sense of what crypto proofs that Nakamoto keep on mentioning means, okay? All right. So in the protocol, which we call trustless Bitcoin staking, the staker, which is the one with the Bitcoin, you can think of, can put the Bitcoin, okay, into a vault, okay, into a vault. The more technical language for Bitcoin vault is called UTXO, okay? UTXO means unspent transaction output, okay? But at a high level, we can think of it as like vault. It's like a lock that you lock your Bitcoin in, but this lock is happening on the Bitcoin chain, very important. A trustless protocol has to be primarily on Bitcoin, okay? Now, this vault has 2 exit conditions, okay? So a vault, there are 2 ways of getting the Bitcoin out from this vault. One way is that the staker, okay, the staker himself or herself can decide to unstake and say that, okay, I don't want to provide security staking anymore. I want to exit. And after 2 days, then the money, the Bitcoin will go back to the staker. In the other path, okay, in the other path is called slashing, okay? And slashing is actually one very key feature of a staking protocol, okay? So slashing in a staking protocol basically means that, oh, this staker has done something wrong in terms of his job of securing the proof of stake network. And since it's done something wrong, some of the assets should be slashed, okay? And so in economic term, you can think of this money in the vault, this Bitcoin in the vault is actually like a collateral. This collateral says that, okay, I put this Bitcoin in to ensure that the staker does good behavior in validating the proof of stake chain. If I do something bad, then part of this collateral can be slashed. So for example, in Ethereum, not in Bitcoin, in Ethereum, this is what I'm trying to say is that this is a general flow of a blockchain, of any proof of stake blockchain. For Ethereum, for example, you put 32 ETH to provide staking, and if something goes wrong, 1 ETH will be slashed. Okay, an example. All right, now in Bitcoin staking, however, the security is actually you provide security on another blockchain. Okay, so this right-hand side is like part of the DeFi economy. This DeFi economy has a proof of stake chain as the foundation to this DeFi economy. And now Bitcoin wants to come in and say, okay, let's use the Bitcoin that is locked in this vault to provide security. Okay, so how does that work? All right, how does that work? Now, the staker, okay, is a validator on the proof of stake chain. Okay, and the job of the validator is basically sign on every block. Okay, so every block that get appended to the blockchain, the validator goes and sign on the block. Okay. Now it turns out that the key attack, okay, of a proof of stake blockchain, or in fact a key attack on any blockchain, is the so-called double spend attack. Okay, double spend attack. In more technical language, this is called a safety attack, which basically says that the same validator is now signing on 2 blocks. So double spend means, okay, sign 1 block, the money spent is given to Alice, and then you later on sign another block of the same height and spend the same money and send it to Bob, okay? So there's a double spend attack. This is bad. And in fact, the whole point of blockchain is to prevent this kind of attack, okay? Now, this is a bad thing. So this validator has done a bad job and in fact tries to attack the blockchain. And now I need to basically build a protocol to trustlessly do the slashing, okay? But notice that the Bitcoin that's used as a collateral to provide security is actually on the Bitcoin chain. But the signing is happening on the DeFi economy, so it's on a proof of stake chain, okay? So how do I make the connection between this, the right-hand side to the left-hand side, okay? And it turns out that this is using cryptography, okay? So in cryptography, signing a block basically means that you're using your private key to sign the block, and only you can sign the block, okay? You're the special validator here. Now, it turns out that there is a particular type of signature schemes called one-time signature that says that if you sign a block once per height, then you're good, okay? Then you're good. In other words, your private key remains secure. But if you sign 2 blocks, in the same height, then anybody, a watchtower to be more precise, can observe these 2 signatures and use the 2 signatures to reconstruct the private key of the staker, okay? And now this private key can be used by the watchtower to execute this slashing event, because this slashing is controlled by the private key of the staker, okay? So I think if you look at this whole protocol, okay, it is built on crypto proof, because knowing this secret, okay, this private key, is a proof that this staker does something bad, double sign 2 blocks, okay? And this secret can now be used to do slashing. So you can see that this whole protocol there is no trust on any third party. Everything is kind of automated through cryptography. The whole loop is automated through cryptography. And so that's why we call this protocol a trustless protocol. Okay, so I take a pause here because this is kind of my first deep dive into a little bit of a cryptography to give you a sense of what a trustless protocol means. Is that good?
Yeah,
All right.
maybe can you just, David, I mean, I would like to reiterate a bit this mechanism because this seems to be a crucial part of this presentation. Can you say again, so when you sign on the two blocks, then does it mean that only in these cases the secret key will be revealed to the third party, will be able to basically make sure that the user who has double signed gets lashed? Or
That's right.
it's always in this case that the secret key gets revealed, right? Otherwise,
Yes, only in this case, very importantly, if and only if, mathematically, if and only if. So if the validator's job is basically to sign on one block per height to keep on extending this blockchain in a regular manner. Okay? And the signature scheme is like any standard signature scheme. When you sign, your private key should be protected, right? Because imagine if you have a signature scheme where every time you sign, your private key is revealed, then that signature scheme is not secure. Okay? So nobody wants to use that kind of signature scheme. So normal signature scheme, you can sign not only once, but many times, the private key is not revealed. Okay? However, to enable this slashing, we design a new type of signature scheme, which is called one-time signature, okay? Which actually is not we designed it. We use some existing cryptography, okay, but applied to this application. And such that if you sign once, your private key is protected like these normal heights. But when you try to fork the blockchain, then the secret is revealed. And this secret is used to spend the Bitcoin by this watchtower sending a Bitcoin transaction to the Bitcoin chain, spending this vote in a slashing event.
yeah. Another question is there an assumption that the same cryptographic identity is being used between Bitcoin and the proof of stake chain?
Yes. So the connection is that this vote. So okay. So in a UTXO in Bitcoin, the spending of the Bitcoin is controlled by the private key of whoever that controls the UTXO. Yes, right? If you have a private key, what does it mean by someone owning a Bitcoin? It means that I have the private key so that I can spend that Bitcoin whatever way I want. Okay, that's what it means by owning a Bitcoin. Okay, so this staker owns the Bitcoin, and so this Bitcoin spending is controlled by the staker's private key. Okay, and the cryptographic scheme that we designed is that secret, that private key, is also used in the signing here. Okay. Now, in practice, there are a lot of details because the signature scheme here and the signature scheme here may not be the same, but it turns out that actually they're close enough that we can make some minor modification and achieve this functionality. Okay. The technical term is that the signature scheme is called Schnorr signature. And Schnorr signature is a very commonly used signature scheme. And so we can use that to sort of connect the two worlds together.
Yeah, thank you. There is another question by Gustavo Schwengler. I think, Gustavo, I will unmute you so that you can ask the question directly.
Yeah, thank you, Angus.
Hey, Gustavo.
Hi, David. I was wondering really what the purpose is, like from an economic perspective. Are you really trying to kind of allow Bitcoin to be more productive? Which to me raises the question of why do we really need this? I mean, people use Bitcoin, right? They hold it. I don't know necessarily that there's a need so much for that. Or is it really trying to bring more liquidity kind of to like the DeFi infrastructure? Where kind of like my question would be, why haven't existing bridges been able to accomplish that, right?
Yeah, Gustavo, I think the answer to your question is both. Both, actually. Okay. We talked to a lot of proof of stake chains, okay? All proof of stake chains we talk to love to have liquidity, Bitcoin liquidity.
Absolutely.
Okay, it's huge. It's 2.4 trillion. Even if they get 1.1%, it's still much larger than TVL of many blockchains. Okay, so as you know, TVL is kind of a very important metric for blockchains, and Bitcoin is such a large capital. So that's the answer to your second question. The first question is, in terms of productivity, yes, you can certainly hold your Bitcoin, okay, but you can't eat by holding on your Bitcoin. You can't eat a Bitcoin, okay? So I think there's a need to make it productive, just like any asset, right? Any asset you hold, you like to make it productive while you're holding it. That's a very essential feature of finance, I think. When you have an asset that is valuable, you want to make use of that asset while holding the asset, right? I mean, I have a house, but I would like to mortgage the house to get a loan so that I can do renovation to my house. That's very common. I don't want to sell my house, but I want to make it productive.
Sure.
And this is sort of the spirit here.
Thank you. Yeah.
All right. Okay. Any more question here, or should I move on?
You can move on.
All right. Cool. All right. So staking is one application, okay? But now I want to, our success with this Bitcoin staking suggests to us that this concept of using Bitcoin trustlessly is useful in both, like Gustavo's question, both in terms of injecting liquidity to the DeFi economy and also making Bitcoin more productive, okay? And so our current work is basically generalizing this concept, okay, of vote or trustless vote into other applications. It turns out that this is like a canonical structure that is very useful, right? The idea is that staker or Bitcoin holders in general put some Bitcoin in a vote, use it as some kind of collateral, and depending on what conditions it is spent, okay? And so we start looking at the DeFi economy, and we observed a few things. One is that staking or restaking is actually a big part of the economy, as I mentioned. Another very big part of the DeFi economy is lending, okay? So what does lending mean? Lending means that you want to use a collateral to borrow money, and typically the money you borrow is say USDC or USDT, some stable, okay? And you want to make productive use of your collateral by having stable, which allows you to participate in other parts of DeFi economy, or you can do an off-ramp and convert into fiat, and you can use in the physical world, okay? So lending is a very big application. And so this next example I'm going to give is lending, okay? How do we apply this trustless vote paradigm to the lending application? And then we'll see some of the general structure emerging. Okay, so all right. So Bitcoin-backed lending, I think, is a good example to answer Gustavo's earlier question, which is, okay, all right, so you have Bitcoin, all right? You had Bitcoin since 10 years ago, all right, since 10 years ago. And Bitcoin price keeps on going up. Whoa, this Bitcoin price, it used to be like a few dollars a Bitcoin, now is like $100,000. Okay, now I want to have some liquidity, okay? I want to have some liquidity to use whatever applications I want to earn more yield or use to buy a house or buy a car or something, but I don't want to sell my Bitcoin. Okay, I don't want to sell my Bitcoin, and there are two very good reasons why I don't want to sell my Bitcoin. One is I believe Bitcoin price will continue going up. Okay, if you believe in Michael Saylor, it'll go to maybe $1 million. Okay, in the end of the decade. Number one. Number two is if I sell my Bitcoin, I will pay a huge tax bill. Okay, because I had this Bitcoin 10 years ago already. I don't want to do that. I don't want to pay a huge tax bill. Okay, so what I can do is lending, very natural. And the application here is that I'm going to use the Bitcoin as a collateral, to back a lending position, okay, a borrowing position, where I borrow, say, USDC, okay? So this is the application here. And you'll see that the structure of this application is rather similar to the Bitcoin staking structure. Okay, so in this example, we have Bob, okay? By the way, any cryptographic protocol must have Alice and Bob, okay? Now here I have Bob because Bob is the borrower, okay? Bob is the borrower. Now the borrower has one Bitcoin, let's say, and it wants to use that to borrow USDC. So it puts the one Bitcoin into this vault. And now I want to design this vault with two exit conditions. Number one is if Bob, the borrower, repay the loan and the Bitcoin price remains above 50K USD, okay? Then this vote should allow Bob, the borrower, to redeem the Bitcoin, okay? Loan is repaid, Bitcoin is repaid, collateral is safe, all right? On the other hand, if the Bitcoin price goes below 50K, Larry, the lender, can now liquidate the collateral, okay? Can now liquidate the collateral because the collateral price have dropped sort of above sort of the LLTV, so to speak, okay? Loan to value ratio threshold, okay? And the money is exited, okay? All right, so you can see that, hey, this is somewhat similar to the Bitcoin staking example. You have a collateral, you have two paths, a happy path where the loan is repaid, and then you have a unhappy path, which is liquidation, okay? Now, what we need to do, okay, what we need to do is to enable this function is basically do the same thing as we did before by verifying the appropriate withdrawal conditions can be verified on Bitcoin trustlessly, okay? Because right now in this vault, two people, Bob and Larry, both can access this vault, but under two different conditions, okay? Now, you may ask, okay, who knows these conditions? All right. Now, this loan is actually processed through a smart contract on a lending protocol on a smart contract chain. For example, on Ethereum, there are two big lending protocols, two biggest lending protocols. One is Aave, and the second one is Morpho, okay? So these are examples of lending protocol. And so this loan repayment, etc., is all done on a smart contract on Ethereum, okay? And so this statement, this condition, loan repay, Bitcoin price above 50K, is a state of the smart contract lending protocol, okay? And so what we need to achieve here is basically how we can let Bitcoin Vault understand the smart contract state on Ethereum so that we can discriminate which path to take. Should it be Bob, who can get money from the vault, or should it be Larry, who can liquidate the money from the vault? Okay? So this is the problem that needs to be solved. Verifying the appropriate withdrawal conditions on Bitcoin trustlessly. And if we go back,
David, sorry.
Yes.
Apologies for interrupting. There is a
no apologies. No apologies.
A question related more to the mechanism that you have described earlier, right? About the slashing. When you discover that the user is double spent. So the question is, what's the incentive for slashing, right? Does the slasher get the Bitcoin in their vault? So why would the slasher incentive to do that?
Yes. So slashing, okay, so that is kind of a different story, kind of a bit different from today's story, but I can say a few words. One is, yes, you can design it in such a way that the slasher will get a fraction of the slashing expense. That's possible. Okay, that's possible. Two is that the watchtower could be considered as a public good of the blockchain. So for example, right, if you're an exchange, okay, a Kraken or Binance or Coinbase, okay, and you're operating on this blockchain, you want to make sure that this blockchain is secure, right? Because your asset is actually floating in this blockchain. And so you are incentivized to set up a watchtower just to observe, to make sure everything is okay, you know? So I would answer the question in two ways. Okay?
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. So back to the story here, which is how to verify withdrawal conditions, okay? And so if you think about it, that is the problem that we solve for the specific Bitcoin staking application, okay? So what's going on here, right, is that in this example of Bitcoin staking, we have a double sign situation happening here on the proof of stake blockchain, okay? This is the state of the proof of stake blockchain. Now, this state has to be somehow communicated to Bitcoin so that Bitcoin can verify that, yes, this state has happened, this bad situation, double spend has happened, and therefore slashing should be enabled. But Bitcoin cannot read such a complicated proof of stake blockchain, what's happening here. And so the mechanism that we invented for Bitcoin staking is through this secret leaking and using the secret to spend Bitcoin. So Bitcoin actually understands very little because of the limited scripting language. But one thing it does understand is that when you have a secret, then you can use a secret to spend the Bitcoin, okay? And so what we have designed here is to enable the secret to be leaked if and only if the bad state has been achieved, okay? So that was what is achieved. Now, if we want to generalize this to other applications, such as lending, which is a very important application here.
And sorry to interrupt you, David.
Yeah.
It's a question related to the mechanism that you just described by Maxime Bikuch. Maxime, please go ahead and ask.
Thank you. Thank you, Agostino, and thank you, David, for a very interesting talk so far. I'm sorry for a little, hopefully not very stupid question, but how do you ensure that the key is the same, right, between the vault and the signing, right? Because if I'm a Bitcoin holder, right, of course I have an incentive to fake my key, right? Or alternatively, if there's a, if there's a protocol that everything, then I have to trust the protocol. Thank you.
Yes, very, very, very good question, Maxime. So in cryptography, there's this concept called commitment, okay? And it's a very important concept in cryptography. A commitment scheme basically means that you make a certain commitment before in the setup phase. In this example, when the vault is set up, you make a certain commitment that a particular private key is the only key that can open this vault, okay? And this commitment can be made without revealing the private key. Of course, you don't reveal the private key by revealing only the public key, okay? The public key is the commitment of the private key. And now with this commitment, you can now connect the two vaults together in the sense that the public key that this guy uses and the public key of this commitment should match. Otherwise, you will not let the staker vote on the block. Okay? So although you never revealed a private key in the happy path, the public key is exposed to the world, and the public key is a commitment that the staker is using the same private key to sign these blocks, and the same private key can exit from this vote.
That makes sense. Thank you.
This is the magic of cryptography, okay? This idea of commitment is a very important part of cryptography. It's not only used in this application, but in many, many applications of cryptography. All right, good. Thanks so much for that question. Really great questions I get here. Okay. All right. Okay. Now, so the real challenge here is now we want to generalize this notion of verification using secret revelation from a very specific application, which is Bitcoin staking, where the state, the bad state, is the double signing, to more general smart contract state. In the case of lending, the smart contract state is whether the loan is repay or not repay and what the price of Bitcoin is. And this is all determined by the state of the smart contract. And obviously, it's too much to try to invent a new cryptography for any particular application. And so now it became a very general problem in cryptography, which is, how do I verify a state of a smart contract on Bitcoin trustlessly? And that becomes like the most important problem to solve. Okay, all right. And so it turns out, okay, that the general schema of verification on Bitcoin, okay, in order to achieve this, is through this secret revelation. And in fact, all native Bitcoin protocols that have been built so far, whether it's Bitcoin staking or Lightning or atomic swap, they are all based on this general paradigm of secret revelation. Okay, so we have an example here. So Bob makes a claim. Maybe Bob wants to get back the Bitcoin, and he claims that I have returned the loan already, and the Bitcoin price is above a certain 50K. Then we want to design a protocol. This is a wish list. We have not talked about the protocol yet. We wish to design a protocol such that if Bob's claim is incorrect, then Larry, the lender, which is the opposing party, can extract a secret S and use this S to stop Bob's claim by, say, spending Bob's money, okay, by spending the vault money. Whereas if after, say, a few hours or one day, if Larry is unable to find the secret, in the case of Bitcoin staking, 2 days actually, then the claim will succeed, okay? All right, okay? Or another structure is perhaps Bob can make a claim, and as long as Bob can reveal a secret S, then the claim will succeed. Otherwise, after 2 days, if Bob is unable to reveal the secret, the claim will fail. The first one is what we call a challenge-based protocol, which means that Larry can challenge Bob to stop Bob from successfully claiming. We already give the example of Bitcoin staking, but it turns out Lightning is also based on this challenge-based architecture. Whereas other protocols, it follows this non-challenge based, okay? All right, which is based on, an example of this is so-called atomic swap, which allows people to swap Bitcoin for, say, Ethereum, okay? So these protocols have already been invented, and these are all based on the secret revelation, and Bitcoin staking is the latest example of that, also based on secret revelation. And if you know this, if you've seen this jargon in the literature, is so-called hash time log contracts. These are all examples of hash time log contracts.
Right.
Okay.
So just a question, David. So back to this graph, I'm thinking if Bob claims that his Bitcoin is worth more than 50K, and this is not true, then why would it take like 2 days or like large amount of time for Larry to find this out, right? Is it because they're not?
Yeah, because there's several reasons. There are two reasons. The two reasons why you need a. Sorry, let me just take a drink here. The main reason is because Bitcoin chain is very slow, okay? And sometimes there's a congestion in the Bitcoin chain. So even if Larry can immediately extract the secret, it may take him some time to actually send a Bitcoin transaction onto the Bitcoin chain to stop Bob's claim. So you have to allow some time for it to do that, because if you have this instantaneous timeout, then Larry may not be able to get the transaction into the Bitcoin chain. For example, Bob can now send a lot of spam transaction to congest the Bitcoin chain so that Larry can't really send his challenge transaction. And so this time is allowed so that Bob can play this game.
Yeah. And
okay.
there is
so actually this
way.
kind of structure is actually pretty common in Ethereum rollup as well. In Ethereum rollup, actually, there's a 7 days challenge period. You allow people to send challenge to a wrong state, a rollup state, within 7 days. So this is pretty standard, actually.
Yeah. So there is another question on the chat. Is the vault logic formally verified or backed by a verifiable computation proof? And if not,
yes,
how do you avoid reduced? Okay, so the answer is yes.
That's that is the next part of the talk.
Okay.
Right now, it is like right now I'm just giving sort of a bit of a history on how people design trustless protocol in Bitcoin through this secret revelation, through this hash time block contract. Okay. What I want to say in the next slide, which I think addressed that question, is that these applications are all specific applications. Okay. So in other words, people figure out, oh, okay, for Bitcoin staking, double sign is the bad state, and I want to design a specific cryptographic scheme to reveal a secret if there's double sign, okay? But if you want to generalize this to verifiable computing, which means allow any smart contract state, then you have to generalize this. And that's what I'm going to talk about. And that's the open problem that we solved in the past year. Is that good, Agostino?
Yeah, that's good.
Because I don't see the chats. I don't know whether there are other questions or not. I'm kind of on YouTube to we have to understand. Yeah.
Yeah. Another question. Feel free to go ahead.
Okay. All right. Okay. Now. Okay. So now this is sort of these two slides are kind of pretty deep into the crypto. I think at this point, I think I want to give a sense to the audience that there's some pretty significant cryptography to solve this problem. But maybe I want to say the following, okay? All right. Instead of going deep into crypto, maybe I can say the following, okay? All right. This problem, actually, of verification, okay? Verification of a state on another blockchain trustlessly is actually a problem that appears quite a lot in other blockchains, not Bitcoin, okay? So I already gave the example of Ethereum, okay? So you may be familiar of a concept in Ethereum called rollups. Agostino, can I assume people sort of have heard of such a term called rollup?
I think no. I think most of the audience in this webinar have seen rollups.
Okay, good. Now, what is rollup, right? In a rollup, you're running some applications, okay? You're running some applications, but every now and then you want to settle back your asset to Ethereum, the main chain, okay? And so Ethereum have to verify whether the state of the smart contract that you propose to Ethereum is correct, because you say that, hey, I have 10 ETH, okay? I have 10 ETH. Please give me 10 ETH on the main chain, okay? How does Ethereum know you have 10 ETH? For all I know, you may have 0 ETH, okay? So Ethereum must verify the state on another blockchain, which in this case is the rollup, which is essentially another blockchain, okay? All right. So actually this problem of one blockchain verifying the state of a smart contract on another blockchain is not a new problem. It's not a new problem, okay? Now, how do people solve it in Ethereum? How do people solve it in Ethereum? Okay. The way they solve it in Ethereum is to use a technology called zero-knowledge proofs. Okay. What is zero-knowledge proof? Zero-knowledge proof says that the rollup create a proof of the statement that I have 10 ETH and send the proof to Ethereum, and Ethereum, using a smart contract, can verify this proof. Okay. Now you may say, hey, why do you use zero-knowledge proof? Why don't you just upload the entire state, entire rollup state, all the blocks to Ethereum and let Ethereum do the verification directly? Well, that's too expensive. And in fact, the whole point of rollup is to scale the computation so that the Ethereum main chain doesn't have to do all this expensive computation, and the rollup can deal with the computation. And so ZK proofs is a very cool technology to allow Ethereum to verify, okay? So this problem actually has already been solved on Ethereum, verifying another blockchain, in this example, rollup. So basically now we're trying to solve the same problem on Bitcoin, right? We want to allow Bitcoin to verify withdrawal conditions on a smart contract on Ethereum, okay? So then you say, hey, why don't we just use whatever people already develop on Ethereum to solve this problem? Why are we reinventing the wheel, okay? So it turns out that we cannot do what people do on Ethereum, because to verify a ZK proof is complex logic. And on Ethereum, that can be accomplished by writing a smart contract, zero-knowledge proof verification contract, okay? And on Bitcoin, we can't write, there's no smart contract support, so we can't write this thing, okay? And so, therefore, what we do here is essentially reduce the verification to a secret revelation process, okay? Which basically says that you are kind of delegating the verification, okay, to off-chain. And to say that, okay, if you verify this, you can verify off-chain. Bitcoin doesn't have to do the work, but for Bitcoin to finally verify, you must tell me a secret, because that secret proves that you successfully verified the correctness or incorrectness of a statement. Okay? So that's why building this protocol on Bitcoin is very difficult, because we cannot follow what Ethereum already did. Okay? So this gives some context. And basically, it turns out that this problem of essentially solving secret revelation for general NP relation has been considered about 10 years ago in a problem called witness encryption. Witness encryption basically says that, okay, if your chain satisfies or smart contract satisfies a certain state, then Bob can decrypt the secret, okay? It's called witness encryption, very interesting technology. And you can apply that to our problem, because now you can translate any arbitrary state you want to verify to a general so-called NP relation. And if this relation holds, then Bob can decrypt the secret and use the secret to achieve the claim, so-called non-challenge based approach. Unfortunately, this doesn't work. This doesn't work because witness encryption has no good solution in general, okay? And so we actually have to invent and use some other cryptographies to solve this problem. And long story short, since I'm running a bit out of time already, we're able to solve this problem in the challenge-based approach. Essentially, just like what the question said, is that we are able to achieve verifiable computing where the verification is done by Bitcoin, okay? And this has a lot of jargon. We combine like 10,000 different techniques, a technique called Gobble circuit, a technique called Lamport signature, and combine that with zero knowledge proof technology. And essentially, we're able to take this verification, okay, of a state off-chain entirely and boils it all down to secret revelation. That is, if the state is, if Bob makes a claim and the state is incorrect, then Larry, by running all this off-chain cryptography, can extract the secret and stop the spending, okay? So this is roughly how it works. Bob would post a proof, a ZK proof on Bitcoin. And then Larry would compute off-chain based on the proof. And if the proof is incorrect, then the Gobble circuit will reveal a secret that Larry can use to stop Bob's claim. Otherwise, within 2 days, Bob can now go forward and redeem the Bitcoin. Okay? So there's a whole lot of development on this work. There's a alliance of multiple startups actually working together, as well as academia, on this problem, and this has gone through multiple rounds of iteration until it gets to the state, and we are one of the key participants in this effort. Yeah, so maybe I skip. We've done experiments. So right now, we're building a proof of concept, and a proof of concept is to integrate this vault with a particular lending protocol. In particular, we're working on the Morpho protocol to essentially integrate this vault with a smart contract lending protocol. We're building the proof of concept, and I think next week we'll be doing some experiments, and we'll live tweet it on Twitter. So you can, if you follow me, then you can take a look at the experiment. All right. So yeah, so that's the crypto economy that we're trying to build, which is essentially to have a strong connectivity between Bitcoin and the smart contract. And we're able to hopefully overcome this trust bottleneck that we currently see. Great. So as I mentioned, there's a lot of collaboration here with so-called BitVM Alliance, a lot of work done with the Babylon teams, and we thank all these folks. A lot of very smart people are working on this problem, cryptographers, protocol designers, etc. Okay, if you want to read more about this, you can take a look at the white paper that we published about a month and a half ago, which describes this protocol, explains the applications, and that's it.
Thank you, David. This was a very interesting and clear talk. I mean, I could follow almost all of it, which is great, and I hope everybody else also had a chance to understand and learn about this exciting technology that you're developing. I would like to ask if there are other questions. If not, I would like to ask a question myself. I think in the example that you have with Bob and Larry, so when Bob is posting the capital to borrow against it, right, he's facing an opportunity cost. And because, as you mentioned, I think the capital gets locked for 2 days. And
Yes.
so the question is where does the yield come to incentivize Bob to bear this opportunity cost, right?
So you're talking about the staking, or you're talking about the lending application?
No, I'm thinking about the staking.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, the staking application, here it is.
Yeah.
Yes.
So you have 2 days.
So yes, there's an opportunity cost to the capital, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. And the yield, if you remember, I mentioned here, actually, in proof of staking, the chain that receives the security always provide a yield to the staker that provides the security. Okay.
Okay. So the yield is
And the
coming.
yield,
Yeah.
and the yield comes from multiple sources. One, it could come from the inflation of some asset of the chain, or it could come from the transaction fees, part of the transaction fees on the chain. So you can think of, you have an economy that is secured by these collateral, and
Yeah.
part of the economy overhead will go to award the stakers. This is actually not specific to Bitcoin staking. This is the general flow of proof of staking. And that also applies to Bitcoin staking. So if you provide security, then you get yield. Now, I should tell you one thing, is that in the current Bitcoin staking, the yield is 0.27%. Okay? 0.27%. Now, the average yield for proof of stake staking is about 8%. Then you may ask, hey, why are these guys idiots? These 7 billion people? Why are they providing Bitcoin staking earning so little yield? While others are earning 8% APY, okay? And the reason is very simple, actually, is that these guys want to keep their Bitcoin. So they don't want to convert to, say, ETH or Solana or so to earn this high APY. And if they keep the Bitcoin, there's no other use for the Bitcoin. So I think these numbers, I think, give a very concrete example of the fact that Bitcoiners are kind of hungry for yield. It's just that there's no place to get yield. Okay, so even at such low APY, then they're still happy to participate in this protocol, as long as it's trustless. Okay, as long as it's trustless. That so yeah, so I think that's sort of
So, I mean, I think what you're saying is that they have an implicit belief that the Bitcoin token will be very valuable, right? Because you always have two options, or you could borrow, you could do collateralized borrowing, which means that you maintain custody. I mean, you still own the asset, right? Because you will be able to get back your collateral after repaying the loan, or you could just sell it. In this case, you will convert it into Ethereum, and then you would stake Ethereum. And they are saying that the reason why they don't do that is because they have a very strong belief that Bitcoin cryptocurrency will be way more valuable than ETH, right?
yes, very strong and perhaps irrational, but yes,
Yeah.
very strong.
Because it's a large gap. Now it's from 2% to 8%, so it's significant.
So I must say this 8% Ethereum APY is about, last time I checked, was around 3%, 2.5%, 3%. So this APY is average across the whole industry, and some blockchains are much higher APY than others.
Yeah.
And so the lesson is that the more valuable your asset is that you considered, the lower APY you can take.
Yeah.
Because the opportunity cost of keeping it is low.
Yeah. Very good, David. I think we are right on time. Before we close out the session, I would like to remind everybody that this next Friday, October 16 and Saturday, October 17, we are hosting at the Columbia Center for Digital Finance Technology, which I'm directing, the CBR Crafting the Crypto Economy Conference, sponsored by also the Avalanche Foundation and the Uniswap Foundation. And it's an exciting program. I mean, it's, of course, in collaboration also with the CBR and all the other universities which are part of the initiative, including the University of Florida, where FAD currently is. And it's an exciting program, and we have also Darrell Duffy as the keynote speaker. Like, on top of that, we also have a lot of other interesting talks from many people of the community. So encourage you to register. All the information is available from the CBR website, and hopefully we will see all of you there.